New York 6 years ago. The chandelier in the Manhattan penthouse sparkled like lost stars, reflecting off the youthful faces bathed in laughter and smooth jazz melodies. The Columbia University graduation party buzzed with celebration, but for 22-year-old Leah Bennett, everything felt like a blurred painting. She stood tucked in a corner, clutching a champagne glass long gone warm, her deep brown eyes clouded with loneliness in the crowd. Her dark blue silk dress couldn't compare to the dazzling outfits around her. It was as if she were a misplaced shadow in this lavish canvas. A month ago, Leah had thought she was living a dream, graduating with honors in economics, a promising job on Wall Street, and Mark the boyfriend she had loved for 2 years. But that dream shattered the night she caught Mark embracing another girl in the dark corner of the drama club. "I'm sorry, Leah. It's just—" "She understands me better," he had said, his voice cold, cutting into her like salt on a wound. Since then, Leah had closed herself off, blaming herself for trusting too easily. Watching others laugh and dance so freely, she wondered, "Do I even belong here?" "Leah, don't make that wet cat face again," a sharp voice cut through her thoughts. Sarah, her college roommate, bounded over with a radiant smile, golden curls bouncing, a glittering cocktail in hand. "This is a graduation party, not a funeral. You've got to cheer up." Sarah, always blunt and full of life, was the wind that blew Leah out of her comfort zone. She grabbed Leah's hand, trying to drag her onto the dance floor, where couples swayed to the beat. "Come on, forget that jerk. You're gorgeous, brilliant, the world is waiting for you." Leah shook her head gently, slipping her hand free. "I don't feel like it, Sarah. I just need some space." Sarah sighed and shrugged. "Fine, but if you keep standing here like a statue, I'm dragging you to karaoke." Her mischievous grin made Leah chuckle, even if only half-heartedly. But when Sarah got pulled away by a group of friends, the loneliness returned like a wave. Leah walked over to the bar, hoping a glass of cold water might ease the ache inside. At the bar, as she reached for her drink, she accidentally bumped into someone. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, looking up and found herself staring into a pair of icy gray eyes, like the sky before a storm. The man was tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, radiating an air of power and mystery. "No problem," he said, his voice deep and resonant, with a faint smile that made Leah's heart skip a beat. "I'm Julian," he introduced himself, offering no last name, only adding, "I work with numbers, but tonight I'm trying to forget them." Leah smiled, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. "Leah," she replied, "and I'm trying to forget a few things myself." Their conversation began like an improvised dance. They talked about the party's blinding lights, the uncertainty of their futures. Leah, usually reserved, found herself strangely open. She spoke of her dream to work on Wall Street and confessed her fear of falling short of her father's expectations. He ran Bennett Timber Co., a struggling family business hurt by the declining timber market. "My dad wants me to save the company," she said softly, "but I don't even know where to begin." Julian listened, his eyes never leaving her face. "I know what it's like to be trapped by expectations," he said. "This world is full of masks. Sometimes I just want one night to be myself." A second glass of champagne, then a third, blurred the lines. Leah felt drawn to Julian, not just his perfect looks, but the way he made her feel seen. As the music slowed, Julian took her hand and led her out to the balcony, where the lights of New York stretched out like a sea of stars. The night breeze was cool, sweeping away her worries. "You're different from everyone here, Leah," Julian said, his fingers gently brushing her hair, leaving a trail of warmth. She looked into his eyes, heart pounding. "So are you," she whispered. Their first kiss was like a flame, slowly rising, gentle yet fierce, as if they were both searching for something in the storm within. His lips met hers, warm and hungry, pulling her away from Mark's betrayal, from her family pressures. They left the party, walking hand in hand through the dim city lights, like two lost souls who had found each other. Julian brought her to a nearby hotel, the soft golden light of the suite wrapping the room in hush. In that stillness, only breath and heartbeat remained. Their kiss deepened, more intense like a wave crashing, drowning all reason. Julian's breath on her neck was searing, every exhale lighting her skin on fire. His touch tender, yet claiming, made her heart race, her body tremble with a longing she'd never known. Her dark blue silk dress slipped to the floor like a falling petal, revealing skin that glistened under the amber light, like silver kissed by the night sky. Julian lifted her in his strong yet reverent arms and laid her on the lavish bed, where white silk sheets embraced her like an invitation. His gray eyes, burning and deep, never left her, as if he were etching every curve, every breath into memory. "Leah," he whispered, voice hoarse with emotion, "let me have you just for tonight." She didn't answer, but her glistening, surrendering gaze said everything. They gave in to each other, two lost souls finding a shore in the storm. Julian's kisses were no longer fleeting touches, but waves of desire tracing her lips, her neck, down to her shoulders, leaving trails of heat that made her moan softly, her body arching with instinct. His hands roamed her skin like an artist shaping a masterpiece, tender, yet possessive, making her feel like the center of the universe. Leah responded in kind, her hands searching beneath his shirt, discovering the hard lines of his body, his heartbeat thudding in sync with hers. In the dim light, they became one, no more boundaries between bodies, just burning desire and salvation in every embrace. Julian's every movement was a silent promise, fierce yet full of reverence, as if he were trying to hold on to her forever. For the first time in months, Leah let go completely, letting the pain dissolve in his arms. She clung to him, her nails grazing his back, desperate to preserve this moment, a moment where they belonged only to each other. No promises, no future. Just a present that blazed like a falling star over New York. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hotel window, illuminating Leah's tired face. She opened her eyes to an empty bed. A small note lay on the table. "Thank you for last night." No phone number, no explanation. Leah sat up, her heart squeezed painfully. She realized she knew nothing about Julian except his name. A storm of shame and anger rose inside her at him and at herself for letting emotions lead her. She clenched the note, feeling the hollow ache inside her grow deeper. 6 weeks later, Leah stood in the dorm bathroom, her hands trembling as she held the pregnancy test. She'd noticed her missed period nearly 2 weeks ago, but hoped it was just stress. 2 red lines stared back at her like a knife slicing through every plan she had made. Her heart pounded, filled with fear and confusion. She thought of her father, struggling to keep Bennett Timber Co. from collapsing, and Julian, the man who had disappeared the morning after. Leah called Sarah, intending to tell her everything, but only managed to say, "I need to get away for a while." Sarah asked, worried, but Leah couldn't explain. She packed a few clothes, bought a bus ticket to Grayport, and made herself a promise. She would build a new life for her and her baby, alone. You're watching Soul Stories, where every tale whispers of love, healing, and hope. This story is a work of fiction created to inspire, entertain, and share meaningful messages about the power of love and second chances. Don't forget to subscribe and be a part of our journey. For now, stay with us. The story is just beginning. Grayport, present day. The early morning sun sparkled on the lazy waves of the coastal town, where the scent of salt mingled with the aroma of coffee drifting out of Pages and Waves, Leah Bennett's secondhand bookstore and cafe. The small shop, with its wooden shelves stacked with old books and warm golden lighting, was Leah's whole world now at 28. Her father had passed away 2 years after she returned to Grayport. She stood behind the counter, her brown hair tied in a high ponytail, a green apron hugging her slender frame, her brown eyes glowing with quiet resilience, though always tinged with a sorrow she couldn't name. 6 years had passed, yet each morning, when sunlight streamed through the window pane, she still felt a vague emptiness in her chest. She ran her hand along the wooden counter, rearranging porcelain mugs, her eyes unconsciously drifting toward Lily, her 5-year-old daughter sitting in the corner of the shop, her small legs swinging from the chair. Lily, with her soft brown curls and stormy gray eyes, was focused on drawing a flower-filled house. Those gray eyes, cold and deep, were a constant reminder of the man Leah had tried so hard to forget. Julian. Every time Lily looked up with her radiant sunshine smile, Leah's heart filled with both warmth and pain. She had never told Lily about her father, only saying, "Your dad was someone who didn't want to stay." The words, though gentle, always left a bitter taste in her mouth. "Leah, are you daydreaming again?" A sharp voice jolted her from her thoughts. Clara, Leah's best friend in Grayport, strode into the shop with her usual energetic gait, her fiery red hair catching the sunlight. A single mother herself, Clara radiated confident sensuality. Her fitted sweater highlighted her curves, her sharp eyes softened by kindness. She placed a box of homemade cookies on the counter and winked. "For Lily and for you. You look like you need a little sugar to wake up." Leah smiled, shaking her head. "You always think cookies can fix everything." Clara plopped onto a stool by the counter, propping her chin on her hand, eyes scanning Leah as if trying to uncover every secret she was hiding. "Seriously, Leah, you need to live a little. If you keep burying yourself in this bookstore, you'll turn into an old lady before you hit 30. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice with pointed emphasis. "You're beautiful, you know that? The way you tie your hair, the way your eyes light up when you talk about books. Men in Grayport aren't blind, you know." Leah chuckled, but her gaze drifted away, hiding the faint sting in her heart. "I don't have time for that, Clara. Lily is enough for me." But Clara was never one to give up easily. She leaned in closer, her citrusy perfume gently wafting between them, her voice now serious. "Lily needs a family, Leah. Not just you, she needs a father. You can't keep hiding from this forever." Leah tensed, her fingers tightening around the porcelain mug. She knew Clara was right, but every time she thought of Julian, his gray eyes, his husky voice, that fateful night, a wave of emotion surged within her, part yearning, part pain. "I'm fine," she said, her voice barely steady, "as long as Lily is happy." As if sensing her mother's gaze, Lily ran over and wrapped her arms around Leah's legs. "Mommy, I finished my drawing," she said, holding it up with a sparkle in her gray eyes. "It's our house with you, me, and a daddy." Leah's heart twisted. She knelt down and stroked Lily's hair, trying to swallow her guilt. "Why did you draw a daddy?" she asked softly. Lily shrugged, her smile innocent but filled with longing. "Because Emma has a daddy, Mommy. I want one too, to read me stories like Emma's dad does." Clara gave Leah a look full of meaning, as if to say, "See?" Leah pulled Lily into a hug, her daughter's small warmth comforting, yet also a reminder of the truth she had kept buried. She kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, "I'll read to you tonight, sweetheart. Okay?" But Lily's question lingered in her mind, like a gentle wave that wouldn't stop hitting the shore. She stood up, returning to work, trying to shake the image of Julian's gray eyes she saw so clearly every time she looked at Lily, like an accusation from the past. The shop began to fill with customers. The chatter of Grayport locals blended with the aroma of coffee and the scent of old paper. Leah moved through familiar faces, serving lattes and cappuccinos, but her thoughts kept drifting back to that night in New York. She remembered Julian's burning breath, the way he pulled her close, the way their bodies melted together under dim golden light. She wondered if he hadn't vanished. Would things have been different? But she shook the thought away. He didn't want to stay, she told herself. Still, her heart ached, as if a part of her still longed for an answer. Before leaving, Clara placed a hand on Leah's shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "Leah, you deserve to be happy. Don't let the past keep you locked away." Leah nodded, but her gaze drifted downward, landing on Lily's drawing on the counter. A house full of flowers, 3 figures holding hands like a dream she didn't dare touch. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and forced herself to focus on the present, on the bookstore, on Lily, on the life she had built. But deep down, she knew the past with those storm-gray eyes was waiting to return, like a tide she could no longer hold back. Grayport, a gentle morning. Golden sunlight filtered through the trees, glimmering on the still surface of the sea. Inside Pages and Waves, Leah Bennett's bookstore cafe, the air was filled with the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee, mingling with the salty breeze and the musty fragrance of old books. Standing behind the counter, Leah ran her fingers along the row of porcelain mugs, her deep brown eyes slightly weary. Another sleepless night haunted by memories of New York. and of the man with storm gray eyes who once made her heart race, then shattered it. Lily sat in the corner of the shop, her little legs swinging, her gray eyes sparkling like gemstones in the light. She was coloring a new drawing, her innocent smile as bright as sunshine. But every time Leah looked into those eyes, a wave of emotion surged: longing, pain, and the gnawing fear of a past she had tried to bury. She turned back to her work, focusing on the hiss of the espresso machine. But her heart beat unevenly, as if sensing something was about to happen. The shop door opened with a soft chime, and a tall figure stepped inside, bringing with him a chill from the outside. Leah looked up, and her heart stopped. Julian Westwood, now 34, stood there in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that emphasized his broad frame and commanding presence. His gray eyes, sharp as a brewing storm, swept across the shop, and when they landed on hers, something in them flared, smoldering. He was just as striking as 6 years ago, but now his confidence had an edge of cold control, like a man used to giving orders and never hearing no. "Black coffee, no sugar," Julian said, his voice low and husky, so deep it seemed to seep into Leah's fingertips, making them tremble. She nodded, struggling to maintain composure, but her hands shook as she picked up the cup. Turning away, she pretended to be busy with the machine, but she could feel his gaze searing into her back, setting her skin ablaze. Why is he here, she wondered, her heartbeat pounding with a blend of anger and desperate curiosity. Julian took a seat by the window, but his eyes weren't on his coffee. They were fixed on Lily, who was still absorbed in her drawing, her gray eyes glowing in the sunlight, identical to his own. He froze. His breath caught. The way Lily tilted her head, the way her lips pursed in concentration, it reminded him of his own mother, a gentle but strong woman he'd lost long ago. His heart thudded. An uncanny instinct stirred inside him, like fate had just struck a cruel blow. Leah brought over the coffee, deliberately avoiding his eyes. But as she placed the cup on the table, his hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch, but it sent a current through her body. She flinched and pulled away, her glance darting to him, guarded and defensive. "Thank you," Julian murmured, voice low, but his eyes locked on hers, searching, stripping away every layer she tried to hide. "You look familiar," he said, tone suggestive, like a test she was bound to fail. Leah froze, her lips tightened. "You must be mistaken," she replied coldly, then turned away, her heart thudding so hard she feared he could hear it. Back behind the counter, she struggled to focus, her breathing shallow as if the very air in the shop had thickened. Julian's image flooded her mind, his tousled dark hair, his dangerously seductive mouth, and that fateful night. She shook her head, trying to block it out, but her skin still tingled, as if it remembered the heat of his touch. Clara entered like a flame in motion, her form wrapped in a curve-hugging knit dress. She sensed Leah's tension immediately, her sharp gaze flicking toward Julian. "Who's that?" she whispered, leaning in, her citrus perfume lingering. "Looks like he stepped out of a magazine, but his eyes say he could eat you alive." Leah shot Clara a warning look, trying to sound casual. "Just a customer." But Clara raised a skeptical brow. "A customer who looks at you like that? Leah, I know you. You're hiding something. Don't let the past make you cower." Before Leah could reply, Julian's phone rang. He stood and moved toward the back corner of the shop. His voice was low but unmistakable. "The Bennett timber deal is going as planned." Leah froze, her grip tightening on the edge of the counter. Bennett Timber? Her father's company, now teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, had once placed crushing expectations on her shoulders, pushing her to the breaking point. Julian's here because of the company? Or was it something else? Suspicion welled up, tangled with memories of that night, leaving her breathless. She looked at Lily, then at Julian, and it felt as if fate were playing a cruel joke. When Julian returned, his eyes found Lily again. This time, he didn't look away. He stepped closer to the little girl, crouching gently beside her. "What a lovely picture," he said, his voice soft, yet brimming with curiosity. Lily looked up, beaming. "I drew a house! That's me and Mommy!" Julian smiled, but something dark flickered in his eyes, as if he'd just stumbled upon a missing piece of a puzzle. Leah watched from afar, her chest tightening like a vice. She wanted to rush over and pull Lily away, but her legs refused to move. Julian stood and turned to her again. "She's adorable," he said, voice like a whisper, but Leah heard the suspicion laced beneath. She turned away, feigning distraction, though her skin felt like it was burning under his stare. She remembered the way he had once touched her, each caress a flame, each kiss a crashing wave. And now he was just a few steps away, yet the distance between them felt insurmountable. Before leaving, Clara leaned close to Leah's ear and whispered, "Be careful, Leah. A man like that doesn't show up just for coffee." Leah nodded, but inside her, a storm had begun to rise, one that threatened to drag her back into everything she had tried so hard to escape. Rain drizzled outside the window of the small apartment above Pages and Waves, casting a misty veil over Grayport, as if trying to hide the secrets waiting to explode. Leah Bennett stood in the kitchen, the soft yellow glow of the light illuminating her face, accentuating the depth of her brown eyes filled with both strength and anxiety. Her thin sweater clung to her curves, highlighting a quiet beauty wrapped in defense, like a thorned flower bracing in the storm. She clutched her cup of hot tea, the warmth too feeble to drive away the chill creeping through her chest. Last night, when Julian Westwood walked into her shop, his storm-gray eyes pierced straight through her, dragging her back to that night 6 years ago, the night their bodies entwined under golden light, where she had surrendered herself to him, only to wake up in emptiness. Lily slept soundly in the next room, her gray eyes closed beneath the dim glow of the nightlight. Leah glanced through the cracked door, her heart aching at the memory of Julian speaking to her daughter. His gentle smile to Lily had felt like a warning. She shook her head, trying to chase the image away, but memories of New York came rushing back, burning and relentless. She remembered his breath on her neck, kisses that crashed like waves, how he had held her like he never wanted to let go. She bit her lip, angry at herself for still reacting to him, despite the fact that he had left her without a word. A knock sounded sharply at the door, breaking her thoughts. Leah flinched, nearly dropping her tea. She drew in a deep breath and stepped to the door, and her heart nearly stopped. Julian stood there, his white shirt soaked through with rain, clinging to his solid frame, defining every sharp, muscular line like a statue brought to life in the dim light. His gray eyes gleamed part fury, part longing, as if ready to burn down every wall she had built. "Leah Bennett," he said, his voice low and commanding, "don't pretend you don't remember me. New York, 6 years ago. One night. You remember." His words sliced through the air, sharp and unrelenting, yanking her back to the night they belonged to each other. Leah froze, her grip tightening on the door handle, her gaze averted. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied, her voice cold but trembling, desperate to mask the panic rising inside. She could feel his eyes like fire trailing from her lips down her neck, setting her skin alight with memories. "You should go. It's late." But Julian stepped forward, closing the space between them. His breath carried the scent of rain and cedar so warm she had to steel herself not to recoil. "You know exactly who I am," he whispered, his voice a pull, a temptation. "You know that night, Leah, and that little girl Lily, those gray eyes. She's mine, isn't she?" Leah felt the blood rush to her face, her heart pounding wildly. She wanted to deny it, but his gaze, deep, suspicious, unrelenting, left her breathless. "Lily is my daughter," she said, voice shaking, her eyes betraying her as they flicked toward his lips, remembering kisses that made her forget the world. "Mine alone. You're mistaken." Julian leaned closer, so near she could feel his body heat like a flame waiting to consume her. "Don't lie to me," he said, his finger gently grazing her chin, a soft touch that sparked through her skin. "I remember every second of that night, Leah. The way you trembled in my arms, the way you whispered my name. You can't hide her from me forever." Leah shoved his hand away and stepped back, though her body betrayed her, still burning under his gaze. "You don't have the right," she said, tears stinging her eyes. "You left me, Julian." Without a word, her voice cracked with pain, but her eyes still blazed, defiant. Julian's brows furrowed, a flicker of hurt crossing his face before he masked it. "I had an urgent meeting to handle. When I came back, you were gone," he said, his voice rough, His hand clenched tightly at his side, as if restraining a storm. If I had known, Leah. He stopped, his eyes sweeping over her, aching to pull her into his arms again. Lily. She reminds me of my mother, the way she purses her lips when she draws, the way she smiles. I know she's mine. Leah's throat tightened. Tears fell. You don't deserve to know, she said, voice cold and clipped. I chose to protect her from you, from your world. The shrill ring of her phone shattered the thick air. It was Clara, her voice filled with concern. Leah, I heard some guy from the city's involved with Bennett Timber. Is it him? Leah glanced at Julian, her heart hammering. I'll call you back, she said, hanging up and turning to face him. You're here for my father's company, aren't you? Julian shook his head, his expression conflicted. I'm here for business, Leah, not for you. But his voice lacked conviction, and when his eyes drifted to Lily's drawing on the table, they darkened like he was waging war with himself. Then Clara appeared, a burst of fiery energy. She glanced at Julian, then at Leah, her eyes sharp. Well, since you wouldn't talk over the phone, I came in person, she teased, voice laced with meaning. Things are pretty steamy in here, huh? She pulled Leah to the side, whispering, Tell the truth, Leah. He's Lily's father, isn't he? For her sake, don't let her grow up not knowing. Leah shook her head, pain shadowing her eyes. I can't, Clara. He'll take her away. He has everything, money, power. I only have her. Julian, standing just a few steps away, stepped closer. His eyes were burning fury and desire swirling together. I'm not the enemy, Leah, he said, his voice low like a promise. But if Lily is mine, I won't let you keep her from me. I remember that night, Leah, and I know you do too. He moved even closer, his breath brushing her hair, making her shiver. Leah stood tall, her gaze unwavering. Leave us alone, she said, her voice trembling, but resolute. When Julian finally turned and walked away, his figure swallowed by the rain, Leah collapsed into a chair, hands covering her face. The memory of that night still scorched her, like a fire that refused to go out. Morning in Grayport carried the fresh breath of rain. The weak sunlight filtered through clouds, shimmering over the damp cobblestone streets. Leah Bennett stood behind the counter at Pages and Waves, her deep brown eyes flickering with unease, her thin gray knit dress hugging her curves. She ran her fingers along the porcelain mugs, trying to focus on work, but her mind was in chaos after last night's confrontation with Julian Westwood. His words, I remember every second of that night, Leah, still burned like fire, stirring memories she had spent years trying to bury. She remembered the way he touched her, the depth of his kisses, their bodies entangled under golden light. Her heart pounded again, the equal parts anger and longing. Her phone buzzed, jolting her back to the present. It was Mr. Henry, her late father's longtime accountant. His voice trembled on the other end. Leah, I just found out. Westwood Capital is quietly buying up shares of Bennett Timber. They're planning a takeover. Leah froze, her hand tightening around the phone. Bennett Timber, her family's final legacy. Though the company was weakening, it was her father's pride. She recalled Julian's voice in the shop, casually mentioning the Bennett Timber deal with that cold detachment. He came here to destroy everything my father built. She ended the call, her heart racing, a rush of betrayal crashing over her like the moment she caught Mark cheating, like when Julian disappeared without a word. She ran upstairs to the apartment and tore through an old box of her father's documents. Amid the dust-covered files, she found a notebook, her father's firm handwriting across the page. March, meeting with Julian Westwood, Westwood Capital. Deal failed, not trustworthy. Leah felt her blood drain, as if doused in cold water. Julian met with my father? Suspicion surged like a tidal wave. She imagined him, gray eyes calculating, planning her family's downfall from the beginning. Clutching the notebook, her gaze flared with fury. She had to confront him. She made her way to Julian's temporary office in Grayport, a sleek glass building out of place in the quiet town. Leah walked in, her gray knit dress clinging to her slender form, brown hair cascading over her shoulders like a curtain masking her tremble. Julian sat behind a polished desk, his black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing strong lines of his neck and chest. When he looked up, his gray eyes flared like sparks. "Leah," he said, his voice low and velvety, laced with temptation. "I was expecting you." She tossed the notebook onto his desk, her voice ice. "You knew my father, Julian. 6 years ago, you rejected his proposal. Now you're here to steal Bennett Timber?" Julian stood tall, commanding, and stepped toward her. The scent of wood and smoke clung to him, hot enough to make her skin prickle. Her body still remembered him, even as her mind screamed resistance. "You've misunderstood," he said, his eyes locked on hers, stripping away her defenses. "That deal, it was just business." "Business," Leah scoffed, stepping closer, close enough to feel his heat. "Like that night was business too? You took everything, then left me behind." Her voice cracked with fury and pain. Julian grabbed her wrist, pulling her closer. His eyes darkened like a brewing storm. "That night wasn't business, Leah," he growled, his breath hot against her cheek. "You know it wasn't. I remember how you trembled in my arms, how you whispered my name, how your body melted into mine." His grip tightened as his eyes dropped to her lips, blazing with hunger. Leah wrenched her hand away, but her heart pounded wildly, her body betraying her. "Don't bring it up," she shouted, tears threatening to fall. "You came here to ruin my family, didn't you? Bennett Timber is all I have left of my father. Was this always part of your plan?" Julian stepped in even closer, his chest brushing against hers, his breath mixing with hers. "I had no hidden plan," he said, voice hoarse. "But Lily, I need to know the truth. She's mine, isn't she?" Leah's throat closed, her gaze drifting to his lips again, remembering kisses that made her forget everything. Suddenly, Julian pulled her into his arms, tight, urgent, desperate, as if trying to reclaim a moment lost 6 years ago. His lips hovered over hers, just a breath apart, his eyes searing with desire. "Say it, Leah," he whispered, voice shaking with need and anger. "You can't hide her from me forever." Leah trembled in his hold, her body melting under his heat, but she shoved him hard, eyes blazing. "Don't touch me," she shouted, her voice splintering. "You have no right, Julian. Not to me. Not to Lily." Julian stepped back, his expression a storm of pain and resolve. "I'll find out the truth, Leah," he said, voice like steel. "And you can't stop me." He left, his figure disappearing into the fading light. Leah returned to the shop, where Clara was waiting, her red knit dress hugging her curves, sharp eyes instantly scanning her. "Where have you been?" Clara asked, eyeing her closely. "You look like you walked through a storm." Leah told her everything, the deal, the confrontation. Clara sighed deeply. "Leah, if he's Lily's father, you have to face it. Don't let the past imprison you." Leah didn't answer, but inside her, a storm was rising, ready to sweep her into the truths she could no longer avoid. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. The sky over Grayport gleamed with sunshine, waves glittering as they lapped against the shore, carrying the salty breath of the sea. The small park near Pages and Waves was filled with children's laughter, the rustle of wind through trees, and the fresh scent of newly cut grass. Leah Bennett stood outside her shop, her deep brown eyes following Lily, her 5-year-old daughter, who was skipping across the lawn, her storm gray eyes sparkling like gemstones under the sun. Leah's pale blue cotton dress hugged her figure, accentuating her graceful curves, but her eyes were filled with worry, as if every one of Lily's smiles was a silent reminder of the secret she had kept buried. The confrontation with Julian Westwood yesterday still lingered like smoke, his strong embrace, his scorching breath brushing her lips, and those storm-gray eyes pulling her back to that fateful night 6 years ago. Lily, her soft brown curls bouncing, was struggling to untangle the string of her star-shaped kite. She pouted in frustration. Leah began to step forward to help, but a tall figure appeared before the girl. Julian, in a deep blue shirt with sleeves rolled up to reveal his strong forearms, knelt beside Lily. His usually cold demeanor softened with a gentle smile. "Need a hand, kiddo?" he asked, his warm, husky voice like a gentle breeze. Leah froze, her hand gripping the edge of her dress, her heart racing wildly. She wanted to run to Lily, to pull her away, but her legs were rooted in place, her gaze locked on Julian. Lily looked up, her gray eyes lighting up. "You know how to fly a kite?" she asked, voice sweet and curious. Julian chuckled, the low rumble making Leah involuntarily shiver, as if it had reached into her fingertips and stirred up all the memories she had tried to forget. "I used to be a kite-flying champion," he said, glancing at Lily before his gaze drifted to Leah standing nearby. His look was deep, meaningful, as if telling her, "I see you. I remember everything." With practiced ease, Julian untangled the string, his long fingers moving deftly. He showed Lily how to tug the string just right, his voice calm yet confident, like a man who was born to be a father. Lily giggled as her kite soared into the sky. Julian stood, and again his eyes found Leah. She turned quickly, pretending to rummage through a bag, but her skin tingled as though his gaze were flame-tracing every inch of her. "Uncle Julian," Lily called, tugging him back toward her. "Tell me a story." She sat cross-legged in the grass, her gray eyes shining with expectation. Julian knelt again, his expression softening as he looked at her, as if he saw a part of himself in her. "What kind of story?" he asked, voice deep and rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. "About pirates or princesses?" Lily tilted her head, thinking. "A story about a daddy," she said, her voice innocent yet full of longing. "I want a daddy, like Emma has." Leah's chest tightened. Her eyes flicked to Julian, and their gazes met his, intense, as if peeling back her walls, reading the truth in her silence. Julian improvised a story about a father who searched the world for treasure to give his daughter. His voice was rich and animated, and Lily beamed with delight. From a distance, Leah watched, her hand gripping the bag tighter, swallowing the pain and longing rising in her chest. Seeing him with Lily, she saw a different Julian, gentle, warm, magnetic. A part of her wanted to run to him, another part wanted to flee. Suddenly, Lily tripped while chasing the kite. Her knee scraped against the ground, blood trickling out. Leah rushed forward, but Julian was faster. He scooped Lily into his arms, strong yet tender. "You're okay, kiddo," he said gently, though concern etched his face. Leah hurried over, her heart pounding, trying to hide her panic. "I'm fine, Mommy," Lily said bravely, but Julian was already carrying her toward the nearby clinic. Leah followed close behind, her eyes never leaving him. At the clinic, a nurse bandaged Lily's knee and casually mentioned the child's rare blood type, identical to Julian's, something he had learned years ago while donating blood. He stiffened. His eyes snapped to Leah like lightning. "She has the same blood type as me," he said outside in the hallway, his voice low but sharp-edged. Leah pressed her lips together, her eyes darting away. "It's just a coincidence," she murmured, but her voice shook like the dam of secrets she held was about to break. They returned to the shop. Lily, now asleep in Leah's arms, breathed softly. Clara was waiting, her fitted red sweater hugging her figure, eyes sharp as always. "You look like a storm just passed through you," Clara teased, though concern lingered beneath her tone. "Who is he, Leah? Don't tell me he's just a passerby." Leah told her everything: the clinic, the blood type. Clara let out a heavy sigh. "If he's Lily's father, you have to face it. Don't let her grow up not knowing the truth." Leah said nothing. Her eyes drifted down to Lily, sleeping peacefully on the couch. She remembered Julian's embrace, his burning eyes that left her trembling. He wasn't just her past. He was a storm, and it was rolling in, ready to take everything she had built. A storm loomed over Grayport. Thunder rumbled and lightning tore through the darkened sky, mirroring the tempest inside Leah Bennett's heart. She stood in her small apartment above pages and waves, the soft yellow light casting shadows across her face, highlighting the pain and fear in her deep brown eyes. She clutched a glass of cold water, struggling to steady her breath after what had happened at the clinic the day before. Lily's rare blood type matched Julian Westwood's, and the storm-gray eyes he had fixed on her, filled with suspicion and longing, had sliced through the secret she'd been guarding for 6 years like a blade. Lily slept soundly in the next room. Leah stared through the cracked door, her chest tightening as she recalled Julian holding Lily, his voice soft like a father's. He's going to take her from me, she thought, hands trembling, tears brimming. She couldn't let her daughter fall into the hands of a man who had once abandoned her. A man who could whisk Lily away into a world where Leah had no place. A heavy knock shattered the silence thunder pounding against her door. Leah flinched. The glass slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. She inhaled deeply, opened the door, and her heart stopped. Julian stood there, drenched in the rain, his black shirt soaked and clinging to his sculpted frame. His gray eyes blazed with fury and hunger, as if they could burn through every defense she had left. "Leah," he said, his voice low and rough, heavy with pressure. "Time's up. Lily's blood type, you know what it means. She's mine. Admit it." Leah stepped back, gripping the edge of her shirt, avoiding his gaze. "You're wrong," she whispered, her voice trembling. Julian stepped inside, slamming the door behind him, closing the space between them. His breath carried the scent of rain and wood hot, intoxicating. Leah's skin prickled, her body remembering what it shouldn't. "Stop lying," he growled, his eyes locked onto hers with relentless force. "You know Lily is mine. Say it." Leah trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. She wanted to deny it, but his eyes, deep and unyielding, left her breathless. "Fine," she cried out, her voice breaking as the walls inside her crumbled. "Lily is yours, but you don't deserve her, Julian." She panted, her eyes blazing. "You left me the morning after, and now you want to take her away from me?" Julian stood still, pain flashing in his eyes like a blade to the chest. He stepped closer, voice hoarse with emotion. "I don't want to take anything from you, Lily, or your father's legacy. I haven't been able to forget you, not for 6 years. I searched for you, but you vanished. That night, I had to leave for an emergency deal. I came back to the hotel, but you were gone." His fists clenched, torn between regret and helplessness. "I didn't know you were pregnant. If I had, I would have never left you alone." Leah shook her head, tears falling freely now. "Don't lie to me," she shouted, her voice cracking. "I don't belong in your glittering world. You're surrounded by women. You're not the man I need, and Lily doesn't need a father like you." She pushed him, but Julian grabbed her wrist and pulled her close. His eyes, burning with fury and yearning, bore into her. "You're wrong," he whispered, his breath hot against her cheek. "There's been no one else, Leah. No one. Since that night, only you." He leaned in, his lips brushing hers just a breath apart. His gaze blazed, desperate and consuming. Then, like a storm finally breaking, Julian kissed her. His mouth crashed into hers, fierce, desperate, devouring. The kiss was soaked in rage, longing, and 6 years of unspoken sorrow. Leah trembled, trying to push him away, but her body betrayed her. She kissed him back hungrily, passionately gripping his shirt, her nails lightly scratching his chest, as if trying to hold on to this moment, to return to the night they belonged to each other. The kiss deepened, scorching and unrelenting, like a silent confession. A tearing down of walls, a dissolving of wounds. When they finally pulled apart, their breaths tangled, eyes still locked. Leah wiped her tears, her voice a fragile whisper. "I'm scared, Julian. Scared you'll take Lily away. Scared you'll hurt us." Julian cupped her face, his fingers brushing her cheek, gentle, yet firm. "I would never hurt you or Lily," he said, his voice low and steady like a vow. "I'm here for her, and for you." Leah looked at him, her eyes still guarded, but something inside her softened. That kiss had opened a door she thought she had locked forever. Julian stepped back, his expression a tangle of pain and conviction. "I'll prove it, Leah," he said, his voice rough. "I won't let you hide Lily from me anymore, but I won't force you either. Not yet." He turned and disappeared into the storm, leaving Leah standing there, her hand brushing her lips where his warmth still lingered. She collapsed to the floor, hands covering her face. The memory of that night, their fiery kisses, every touch like flame mixing with what had just happened. But this time in the chaos, a flicker of hope broke through like lightning splitting the storm. The gentle light of early autumn filtered through the trees of Grayport, casting a golden glow over the small cobbled streets. Leah Bennett stood inside Pages and Waves, her deep brown eyes tinged with weariness. Her thin white silk blouse hugged her curves, radiating a graceful beauty touched with anxiety. She ran her hand along the wooden counter, organizing old books, but her mind was adrift, haunted by the passionate kiss she'd shared with Julian Westwood the night before. His burning breath, the urgency of his mouth against hers, and the confession, "For 6 years I haven't been able to forget you," had ignited something inside her, something she couldn't silence. She had admitted the truth. Lily was his daughter. But the fear of losing her little girl and the lingering doubt about Julian's life and intentions clung to her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Lily sat in the corner of the shop, her storm gray eyes sparkling like gems as she colored a new drawing. She hummed a soft tune, her innocent smile tightening the ache in Leah's chest. Every time Leah looked at Lily, she saw Julian, his eyes, his smile, the way he'd held their daughter at the clinic, protective and sure. The kiss they'd shared, tearful, desperate, and full of longing, had opened a door inside her. But she didn't yet know if she had the courage to step through. Julian had asked her to come back to New York with him, where he could give Lily a better life. His words, though gentle, cut deep, reminding her that he held power she didn't. As CEO of Westwood Capital, he could take Lily away if he wanted. Could she trust him? Her hands trembled as she placed a book on the shelf. She couldn't risk it, not when Lily might be pulled into a world where Leah had no control, no voice. A world of polished skyscrapers and cold boardrooms. A world where she was just a powerless single mother. She left the shop, asking Clara to watch over Lily, and drove to her father's old house on the outskirts of Grayport. The aging wooden cottage, with its dusty windows and peeling paint, was where her father had once built Bennett Timber, the legacy now on the brink of being swallowed by Julian's company. Inside, the smell of wood and old ink filled her nose, bringing back memories of a man betrayed by partners, a company brought to its knees. She sat at her father's old desk, flipping through his notes on Julian. "Failed deal, not to be trusted." The words jumped out like a warning. Doubt crashed over her like a wave of ice. Had Julian been manipulating her all along, just like he'd tried to manipulate her father? She covered her face with her hands as tears slipped silently down her cheeks. "I looked for you," he'd said, his voice rough like a vow. But she remembered those long, lonely nights in Grayport, pregnant and terrified, with no one beside her. She had chosen to raise Lily alone, and now she didn't know if she could trust Julian or if she was just letting her emotions lead her once more, like that night in New York when she had trembled in his arms, her nails digging into his back. Back at the shop, Clara was playing with Lily. When Leah entered, Clara looked up, her sharp eyes immediately noticing the change in her. "Where did you go, Leah?" she asked. "You look like you've been through a war." Leah sat down and quietly told her about Julian's offer. Clara sighed, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Leah, I know you're scared, but you can't keep Lily in the dark forever. She needs to know who her father is. And you deserve to be happy. The way he looks at you, it's like he could devour you. Men like that, they don't forget." Leah gave a faint smile, but her gaze wandered back to Julian's burning breath, his lips hovering just above hers, as if trying to reclaim everything that had been lost. Meanwhile, Julian sat in his temporary Grayport office, storm gray eyes clouded with conflict. He flipped through the Bennett Timber files and noticed discrepancies, suspicious transactions. Someone on the Westwood Capital board was quietly manipulating the stock purchases behind his back. He clenched his fists, thinking of Leah's question. "Did you plan this from the beginning? To take over my father's company?" If he wanted to be in Leah and Lily's lives, he knew he had to prove himself not just for Lily, but for Leah, the only woman who had ever made his heart restless. That evening, back in her apartment, Leah's eyes fell on one of Lily's drawings left on the table, a house with 3 people holding hands. She held it to her chest, tears slipping silently down her face. "Can I trust him?" she wondered, fingers brushing her lips, where the warmth of his kiss still lingered. She knew a decision had to be made. Either let Julian into their lives, or keep running. Even if that meant Lily might grow up never knowing the man who had given her those storm gray eyes. Grayport glowed beneath a brilliant sunset, the last rays of daylight painting the sea red like a reflection of the quiet fire simmering in Leah Bennett's chest. She stood behind the counter at Pages and Waves, haunted by Julian's promise, "I'll prove it," and the intensity in his gray eyes when he looked at Lily. She had admitted that Lily was his daughter, yet the fear that he might take her away and the suspicion that he was orchestrating a takeover of her father's legacy kept her torn. Still, her heart ached for his warmth, like it had on that fateful night 6 years ago. Meanwhile, in his temporary Grayport office, Julian Westwood sat behind a desk, his storm gray eyes skimming coldly over the Bennett Timber documents. He remembered meeting her father, who had come seeking a partnership. But the proposal hadn't aligned with Westwood Capital's direction, and Julian had declined. Now, digging deeper into the takeover, he had uncovered something that made his jaw clench. Richard, the vice president of Westwood Capital, had secretly colluded with Harold Leah's father's former partner to quietly purchase Bennett Timber shares at a low price, intending to flip them to a third party for profit. Julian recalled the pain in Leah's eyes when she accused him of plotting to destroy her family, and now he realized she had every reason to believe it. He knew he had to act, not just for Lily, but for Leah, the one woman he could never forget. Julian called an emergency meeting at Grayport's town hall, inviting Leah and the local shareholders. When Leah walked in, wearing a fitted gray knit dress, her brown hair cascading over her shoulders, her eyes were wary but resolute. Julian stood on the stage, his gaze locking onto hers. "You came," he said softly, voice low and edged with emotion. Leah nodded and sat down, trying to stay calm, though her heart pounded as he began to speak. Julian laid everything bare: the shady transactions orchestrated by Richard and Harold, the hidden emails revealing their plan to sell Bennett Timber to a foreign conglomerate. He announced that the acquisition was canceled and pledged to keep Bennett Timber in the hands of Leah's family. "I didn't come here to destroy," he said, his eyes sweeping the room before landing on Leah, deep and sincere. "I came to make things right. 6 years ago, Mr. Bennett approached me with a proposal to save his company. I turned him down." He turned toward her, voice steady and solemn. "Leah, I know you've doubted me, but I need you to see the truth, not just about the company, but about me." Leah froze, her eyes drifting to him. She remembered his kiss, the way he held her like he never wanted to let go. Harold, seated at the back, stood in panic. "This is a lie," he shouted. But Julian raised a hand, voice cold as steel. "I have the evidence, Harold. You betrayed Mr. Bennett then, and you were about to do it again." He projected the documents on the screen. Irrefutable proof. The room buzzed with shock and anger. Leah felt the blood rush to her face, tears threatening as she realized her father had been betrayed by someone he once called a friend. She looked at Julian, and his eyes remained locked on hers, silently saying, "I'm here. For you." After the meeting, Leah stayed behind, facing Julian in the now empty hall. "Why did you do this?" she asked, voice trembling. "For Bennett Timber or for Lily?" Julian stepped closer, his breath brushing her hair, the familiar scent of smoke and cedar washing over her, making her shiver. "For you, Leah," he whispered, his gray eyes ablaze. "For Lily, for you, for everything we lost. I want to make things right. I want you to give me a chance." He lifted a hand, his fingers brushing her cheek just like that night in New York, tender and full of longing. Leah trembled, her eyes dropping to his lips, remembering the way their bodies had fit together like they were made for one another. She stepped back, her expression torn. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice cracking. "But I'm still afraid. Afraid you'll take Lily. Afraid you're not the man I think you are." Julian reached for her hand and gently pulled her closer, his eyes burning like fire. "I would never hurt you or Lily," he said, voice low and firm like a vow. "I've lived with 6 years of regret for letting you go. Now I want to stay, for our family." Leah's heart pounded, her body melting under his heat, but she shook her head, tears falling. "I need time, Julian." He nodded, pain flickering in his eyes but tempered with resolve. "I'll wait," he said hoarsely, "but I won't give up. Not this time." He turned and walked away, his silhouette fading into the twilight, leaving Leah standing there, her hand resting on her cheek where his touch still lingered. Back at the shop, she saw one of Lily's drawings on the table, a house with three people holding hands. She held it close, her eyes blurring with tears. He had saved Bennett Timber, her father's legacy. Leah took a deep breath, knowing this was only the beginning, and now she had to face herself, to find the answer her heart truly wanted to give. You're watching Soul Stories exclusive to our channel. If you're still with us, drop a comment we read and cherish them all. Subscribe to support more heartfelt, original stories. Thanks for being part of the Soul Stories family. Greyport bathed in the gentle light of dusk, the sea glowing crimson beneath the final rays of the sun, like a quiet flame still flickering in Leah Bennett's heart. She stood behind the counter at Pages and Waves, her deep brown eyes clouded with exhaustion and hope. The sea-blue silk dress clung to her curves, soft and luminous, like a flower finally blooming after the storm. She ran her fingers over the wooden counter, arranging ceramic mugs, her mind still tangled in the storm of recent days. Julian walked in, wearing a rolled-up white shirt that revealed strong forearms, damp hair falling slightly across his brow. Under the golden lights, he radiated an irresistible magnetism. His gray eyes locked on hers, sending a shiver across her skin, as if her body remembered every touch from that fateful night in New York. "Leah," he said, voice husky, laced with temptation, "I'm not here to talk. I'm here to prove it." She raised an eyebrow, suspicious, but her heart pounded as he shrugged off his jacket and began helping around the store. Day after day, Julian wiped tables, brewed coffee for customers. His gaze softened as he handed a latte to an elderly woman, his smile slowly dissolving the cold exterior he was known for. He fixed the wobbly chair, sweat clinging to his brow, his shirt damp against his chest, highlighting the muscular frame beneath. Leah found herself biting her lip, unable to look away. Lily, their 5-year-old daughter, came running, her storm gray eyes sparkling. "Mr. Julian, come play with me," she squealed, tugging at his hand. Julian crouched down, telling a pirate story in an animated voice, making Lily giggle uncontrollably. His eyes glowed with warmth of father's love, real and unshakable. But he did more than play house. Julian reached out to former partners of Bennett Timber, presenting a bold plan to restructure the company. Using his Westwood Capital connections, he sought new investors. One afternoon, he arrived at the store carrying a thick stack of documents, his gaze unwavering. "Bennett Timber is your father's legacy," he said, his voice low and steady. "I want to help you bring it back to life, Leah." She stared at him, tears threatening. She wiped the sweat from his brow. After everything he had done, she believed him. Leah walked over to Lily, knelt down and said in a trembling voice, "Lily, Mr. Julian is your father." The little girl looked up, her wide gray eyes filled with wonder, then broke into a radiant smile and wrapped her arms tightly around him. "Daddy!" she cried. Julian froze, stunned. His eyes welled up as he embraced her, holding her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever touched. Leah burst into tears, emotion spilling down her cheeks. She looked at Julian, his gaze so gentle, as if he wanted to cradle her entire world. "Thank you," she whispered, voice shaky. He stepped forward, brushing away her tears just as he had that night in New York, with longing in every touch. "I did it for you, Leah," he murmured, voice rough, "and for our daughter." Leah nodded, heart melting, every wall within her finally crumbling. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Leah and Julian sat on the small sofa in her apartment. Soft amber light bathed the room in warmth. A bottle of red wine sat on the table, 2 glasses glinting beside it. Julian held her hand, his gray eyes deep and searching. "I've lived with regret for 6 years," he said, voice raw. "Thank you for giving me this chance." Leah looked at him, her eyes shining with tears. "I've missed you every single day," she whispered. "Every time I looked at Lily, I thought of you. I couldn't forget you, but I was so scared, Julian scared you'd forgotten me, that I was just a passing fling. Scared of losing Lily. Scared you weren't real." She paused, breath shaking. "But today, I saw you. With her, with the shop, with my family." She swallowed hard, then said it aloud. "I believe you." Julian leaned in, his lips meeting hers slow and intense, a kiss that spoke of everything they'd lost and everything they still hoped for. It deepened, turning hungry, urgent, 6 years of longing crashing into one moment. Leah clutched his shirt, her nails lightly scratching his chest, just as she had that night in New York when their bodies burned as one. Leah, he groaned, breath hot against her neck, leaving blazing trails along her skin. She trembled, her eyes meeting his. "Julian," she breathed, soft and aching, a whisper of surrender. He lifted her into his arms, carrying her into the bedroom. Dim light cloaked them in warmth. Her silk dress slid to the floor like petals, revealing skin that shimmered under the glow art in its purest form. Julian's lips brushed her shoulder, then her collarbone, each kiss a spark, drawing soft gasps from her lips. "You're mine, Leah," he whispered, voice shaking with desire. His strong hands traced every curve, reverent, devoted. Leah pulled his shirt free, hands exploring the solid lines of his body, his heartbeat thudding in time with hers. They melted into each other, two souls finally home. Each movement was a promise, fierce yet tender, a vow to make up for the years apart. Leah clung to him, nails grazing his back, their breath entwined like ocean tides in a storm. That night, they belonged to each other, no more doubts, no more fear. Only passion, raw and consuming, and a love too powerful to deny like starlight, blazing over the Greyport sky. The next morning, Leah awoke in Julian's arms. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over his peaceful face. She smiled, her fingers trailing across his chest, feeling his warmth, his presence. Julian stirred, opening his eyes stormy gray and gentle. "I'm not going anywhere, Leah," he whispered, placing a kiss on her forehead. She nodded, tears of joy brimming. Her thoughts turned to Lily, to Bennett Timber, and to the man who had come back, not just to make amends, but to build something lasting. Together they rose, hands clasped, ready to face the future, where love and trust would guide them through every storm.